So Marvel Rivals has responded to the matchmaking controversy. So first, they just talk about the base points, they talk about the competitive scores and how they arrange them between the two teams. If a player's competitive score is lower than that of the enemy team, the system recognizes that the player is challenging a stronger opponent, which makes sense. This is a very good point, and this is obviously very fair. See, now this is where I'm a little thrown off. For each hero used in the match, we normalize match stats to a per 10-minute value and convert that into a single performative value. Which kind of makes sense because if you're switching heroes, they need to find a way to make it even so you get the amount of points since you're playing a new hero. But then they say we compare that to the average performance value for that same hero at your rank. Also for 10 minutes, that gives a hero-specific performance coefficient. The better you perform versus the average, the higher your coefficient. So they're going upon averages. So the average of what your hero is meant to get, they try to balance it between the average and how good you're doing, which makes sense. But I did not know they go on very specifically about heroes. That's very interesting. If you play multiple heroes, we time weight those to get your match coefficient. But yeah, they have to try to like weight. I guess they do that in per 10 minutes, which is very interesting because some matches are even shorter than 10 minutes. So I wonder how that works out. And then they compare them between the teams, between your team averages to determine your final performance points. Okay, very interesting so far. Not anything out of the ordinary. This isn't crazy yet. A Diamond 1 player spends 4 minutes as Loki and 6 minutes as Invisible Woman in a 10-minute match. First, the system converts their in-game stats to a 10-minute average and then converts them into performance value. Assuming Loki has a performance value of 1200 and Invisible Woman has 1000. Next, the system finds the average performance value for Diamond 1 players with those heroes, which will assume Loki and Invisible Woman both are 1000. We then calculate the performance coefficients. Loki's coefficient is 1.2 while Invisible Woman's is 1. So I guess I have to find the most fair way to do this, which this makes a lot of sense. But I feel like in a way you're kind of getting hurt when you switch. Some games you just have to switch. I don't know. I feel like it can kind of hurt you in a way. This is then weighted by playtime. The overall coefficient works out to be 1.08. Finally, this player's coefficient is compared to the other 5 teammates, resulting in an average of 0.97. Are you telling me I'm getting hurt because of what my team is doing? So determining on how your teammates do compared to you, you might get more points or less points, whether you win or lose. Okay. And this is for the people who cope about how much RR they get. They believe they deserve more. They believe they're not getting enough. This is for the people. If you're simply just not playing good enough to earn more RR, they're not going to give you more RR. So if you're hard stuck for a reason, and that's your fault, whether it's EOMM or not. Okay, so here they're basically just talking about how every matchmaker does it. This is normal. They start off with type matchmaking and then they expand more as the time goes on and as the queue gets longer, which makes sense. That's very normal. Every game does it.
And reaching the upper limit of the range can result in a difference in scores between the two teams. From the matchmaking results, this would appear to be an unbalanced battle. However, tightening the rules would mean much longer waits and a bad experience. This is the core challenge, balancing matchmaking quality and speed. Team queues make this speed versus quality trade-off more noticeable.
Okay, so what it sounded like here, it's obviously a struggle to get into games. You have to determine where people are at, the ping differences, the scores. You have to determine a bunch of different factors. You kind of have to sacrifice some like skill disparity for some like speed so people could get into queues faster and actually play games. Because if it wasn't, people would be in 10-minute queues non-stop, even in low ranks. I still get long queues and I'm in plat. It's very interesting. So they're trying to prioritize like speed, the speed of the queues more than the quality of the games, which is probably why we get a lot of those games where you have those EOMM agents in your games throwing it. We have a person on the other team who's turning into Thanos. That's probably how you get those games. And then you get the people on your team who never played the game before. And this is why you see a lot of those higher ranked people, they take screenshots of their team because they could be Celestial and they will have a low GM in their game on their team. And they're facing a full team of Celestials. That's how they get those games. Because they're prioritizing the quicker speed so you can get into a game faster. Even at the expense of the game. Very interesting. People are not going to like that one. So that's why they're so adamant on like making the team queues lower and lower as you rank up, because they want to avoid that. They want to avoid the games where you get those low ranks in your games. That's honestly a smart way to do it, but in a way it kind of hurts people, and it's not going to get any better. So hopefully they can find a way to fix that.
As team size increases, this accuracy drops, since even if both teams have identical average scores, other factors like teamwork and coordination can sway the outcome. Additionally, because we don't lock roles, players might end up playing a role they are less comfortable with, which means they may not perform at their rank's full potential, even if you are assigned your preferred.
Well, there you have it. Obviously, they're very adamant on the fact that they don't use EOMM. And basically what he's trying to say here is the reason for the unbalance in games sometimes, and the reason you have those bad games, is because of the size of your group. Especially in higher ranks, naturally as the rank gets higher, that's just gonna get worse. That's why to balance it out, they made the group size smaller when you get to higher ranks, because this issue is probably way more prominent in the higher ranks than in the lower ranks, because like 80% of the player base is in the lower ranks. That's why they applied it more to the higher ranks. Which honestly, this makes a lot of sense. So they're not trying to engage you. If you're solo queuing, is rough luck. I think the best option for you will probably be to duo queue or like triple queue, depending on what rank you are, of course, because some people can't do it. You can only duo queue. So if this doesn't make any solo queue players not want to solo queue anymore, yeah, I don't blame you. He's also basically trying to say that teamwork, the reason you're probably getting rolled is because the other team has more teamwork than you because they're queued together. And that's what also causes imbalance, because if you're solo queue, most likely your team is not coming to you. So that's why it's very imbalanced, which makes a lot of sense, and they're probably telling the truth. They have to be telling the truth.
Whether it's 5 consecutive wins or 5 consecutive losses, under different win rate scenarios over 10 matches.
They basically frying y'all, saying it's a skill issue. They're basically saying stop coping. Stop coping about EOM. It doesn't exist. It's not real. It has nothing to do with the game. It's just sometimes, naturally, matchmaking will never be perfect. There's always going to be an issue. There's always going to be a problem. People are always going to have a problem with it. So you kind of just have to accept it because this is the game you're playing. And that's how the matchmaking is going to be. They're probably not going to change it. So yes, our worst nightmare came true. We got exposed for being copers. EOMM is not real. We suck at the game. Yes, we suck at the game.